Rebecca James leaned back in her worn leather chair, her fingers drumming lightly against the mahogany desk. The soft glow of antique lamps cast long shadows across the cluttered room, where shelves overflowed with books on psychology, occultism, and ancient history. A single email had changed everything. The invitation arrived without warning, its sender concealed behind layers of encryption that even her tech-savvy assistant struggled to penetrate. It beckoned her to a place lost in time, a place whispered about in hushed tones among those who dared to believe in the supernatural. The Silent Cathedral. She read the words again, tracing each letter as though they held a secret she could decipher if only she stared long enough. The name alone sent a shiver down her spine, conjuring images of towering spires cloaked in mist, and a history steeped in mystery and forgotten sins. Rebecca had spent her career debunking myths of ghosts and poltergeists, attributing supernatural claims to psychological trauma or the tricks of a fevered imagination. Yet, something about this invitation struck a chord deep within her, awakening a curiosity she hadn't felt since her days as a young researcher. The Silent Cathedral was no ordinary relic of the past. Legend spoke of its haunting beauty and the eerie silence that pervaded its halls, where the whispers of long-dead monks echoed like specters in the night. It was a place where reality blurred with the realm of the supernatural, a nexus of ancient rituals and unspeakable horrors. She glanced at the clock ticking quietly on the mantelpiece. Midnight, the hour when shadows danced and the world held its breath, waiting for secrets to be revealed. With a decisive nod, Rebecca rose from her chair, the email still glowing on the screen like a beacon drawing her into the unknown. Her team awaited her in the dimly lit foyer of their research institute, a motley crew of skeptics and believers, each possessing a unique skill set indispensable to their investigations. There was Jack, the seasoned ex-detective whose skepticism bordered on cynicism, yet whose sharp instincts had saved them more times than she cared to admit. Sarah, the tech whiz with a penchant for uncovering digital breadcrumbs that led them to the heart of mysteries. And Marcus, the historian whose encyclopedic knowledge of ancient civilizations often provided the historical context needed to understand the inexplicable. Together, they formed a symbiotic unit, a modern-day fellowship bound by a shared quest for truth in the face of the unknown. Rebecca knew she couldn't embark on this journey alone. The Silent Cathedral promised more than mere ghosts. It held secrets that could shake the foundations of their understanding of life and death. The drive to the cathedral was a journey into darkness, both literal and metaphorical. The winding road cut through dense forests that seemed to close in around them, casting eerie shadows on the windshield. Rebecca could feel the weight of centuries bearing down on her, as though the ancient trees whispered ancient secrets to the wind that moaned through their branches. At last, they reached the outskirts of the cathedral grounds. The moon hung low in the sky, bathing the ancient stones in an ethereal glow. The cathedral loomed ahead, a titan of Gothic architecture obscured by the veil of night. Its spires reached towards the heavens like fingers grasping for redemption, while its weathered facade bore the scars of centuries-old battles against time and neglect. As they stepped out of the car, the air grew heavy with anticipation. Rebecca could sense the palpable tension among her team, a mixture of fear and exhilaration that mirrored her own. They were about to confront the unknown, to challenge the boundaries of reason and delve into the realm of the inexplicable. With each step towards the looming entrance, Rebecca felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. The Silent Cathedral beckoned them, its ancient stones resonating with echoes of forgotten prayers and whispered confessions. It was here, amidst the silence that stretched like a living entity around them, that they would begin their investigation into the mysteries that lay hidden within its walls. The journey had begun, a journey into darkness, where the line between reality and myth blurred, and where the truth awaited those brave enough to seek it. The heavy oak doors of the Silent Cathedral groaned ominously as Dr. Rebecca James and her team pushed them open. A musty odor, mingled with the scent of ancient incense, greeted them as they stepped into the dimly lit interior. Shadows danced across the worn flagstones, cast by flickering candles that barely illuminated the vastness of the cavernous space. Rebecca's footsteps echoed faintly in the silence, a stark contrast to the cacophony of thoughts racing through her mind. She glanced at her team, Jack's face set in a grim line, Sarah's eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, and Marcus, his gaze fixed on the intricate stonework that adorned the walls. Their equipment, a blend of cutting-edge technology and archaic relics of paranormal investigation, lay in wait, a testament to their determination to uncover the truth behind the cathedral's haunting reputation. Cameras mounted on tripods stood sentinel-like in strategic positions, while electromagnetic field detectors blinked sporadically in the gloom. They began their exploration cautiously, their footsteps echoing softly against the ancient stones. Rebecca led the way, her senses heightened as she scanned the surroundings for any sign of paranormal activity. The air felt charged with an otherworldly presence, as though unseen eyes watched their every move from the shadows. As they ventured deeper into the cathedral's labyrinthine corridors, the temperature plummeted, sending a chill down Rebecca's spine. Jack muttered under his breath, adjusting the settings on his digital recorder, while Sarah tapped furiously on her tablet, monitoring the fluctuations in electromagnetic energy. It was then that they first encountered it, a faint whisper barely audible above the rustling of their own breaths. Rebecca froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The voice seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, its words indistinct yet laden with an urgency that sent a shiver down her spine. Sarah's eyes widened as she pointed to her tablet, where the EMF readings spiked erratically before stabilizing once more. "There's definitely something here," she murmured, her voice barely louder than a whisper. They pressed on, following the echoes of the whisper through a maze of narrow passageways and forgotten alcoves. The cathedral seemed to come alive around them, its walls pulsating with a residual energy that defied rational explanation. Shadows darted at the periphery of their vision, vanishing as quickly as they appeared. Marcus paused suddenly, his hand resting on a weathered tapestry that depicted scenes of martyrdom and salvation. "Look," he said quietly, tracing the intricate stitching with a reverent touch. "This tapestry, it tells a story of faith and sacrifice." Rebecca approached, studying the tapestry's faded images with a mixture of awe and unease. The figures seemed to come to life under the flickering candlelight, their faces contorted in expressions of anguish and ecstasy. Each thread told a tale of devotion and despair, of lives lost and souls redeemed. As they moved deeper into the heart of the cathedral, the whispers grew louder, their words becoming clearer with each passing moment. Rebecca strained to decipher their meaning, her mind racing to make sense of the spectral voices that surrounded them. "It's here," Jack muttered suddenly, his voice low and urgent. He pointed towards a crumbling archway that led into darkness. "I saw something, a figure fleeting." Rebecca nodded, her pulse quickening. They approached the archway cautiously, their senses on high alert. The air grew thick with anticipation, as though they were on the brink of uncovering a truth that had remained hidden for centuries. They stepped through the archway into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. Candles flickered on makeshift altars, casting eerie shadows on the walls. And there, in the center of the room, lay the discovery that would change everything. A hidden chamber filled with the remains of bodies, their skeletal forms arranged in a grotesque tableau of death. Rebecca's breath caught in her throat as she surveyed the scene before her. The bodies, long forgotten by the world above, bore signs of ritualistic sacrifice, symbols carved into their flesh, bones arranged in intricate patterns. It was a scene straight from the pages of history, a testament to the cathedral's dark past and the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. "This changes everything," Marcus murmured, his voice barely audible above the sound of their collective breathing. Sarah's fingers trembled as she captured images of the chamber with her camera, each flash illuminating the macabre tableau in stark relief. Jack, his expression grim, surveyed the scene with the eyes of a seasoned investigator. "We need to call the authorities," Rebecca said finally, tearing her gaze away from the grisly sight before her. This goes beyond our expertise. Reluctantly, they retreated from the chamber, their footsteps echoing hollowly against the stone floor. Outside, the moon hung low in the sky, casting a pall over the cathedral grounds. As they made their way back to their base camp, Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling that they had uncovered only the beginning of the cathedral's secrets. The whispers continued to echo in her mind, their meaning eluding her grasp. The Silent Cathedral had yielded its first secret, a chamber of death hidden beneath its hallowed stones. But what other horrors lay waiting to be uncovered in the darkness?
The discovery of the hidden chamber within the Silent Cathedral sent shockwaves through Dr. Rebecca James and her team. They gathered in their makeshift base camp, a circle of flickering candles casting eerie shadows on the worn parchment maps spread before them. The reality of their find hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the cathedral's dark and twisted history. "We need to notify the authorities," Rebecca declared, her voice steady despite the turmoil roiling within her. "This is no longer just a paranormal investigation. It's a crime scene." Jack, ever the skeptic, folded his arms across his chest. "Are you sure that's wise?" he asked, his brow furrowed in concern. "We have no idea who or what we're dealing with here." Rebecca met his gaze, her jaw set in determination. "We owe it to the victims to bring their stories to light," she replied firmly. "Whatever is happening here, it's bigger than any of us." Marcus, the historian, traced a finger along the faded ink lines of the maps. "Rebecca's right," he said quietly. "We can't ignore what we've found. These people deserve justice." Sarah nodded in agreement, her fingers flying across the keys of her laptop as she drafted a report detailing their findings. "I'll contact the local authorities," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. "We need to secure the area before anyone else gets hurt." With a sense of purpose, Rebecca and her team set their plan into motion. Sarah's fingers danced across her phone screen, dialing the number of the nearest police station while Marcus consulted his notes on the cathedral's history, searching for clues that could shed light on the dark rituals they had uncovered. Minutes stretched into hours as they awaited the arrival of the authorities. The cathedral grounds seemed to hold its breath, the silence broken only by the distant howl of the wind through the ancient trees. Each member of the team was lost in their thoughts, grappling with the enormity of what they had stumbled upon. Finally, the sound of approaching footsteps shattered the stillness. A group of uniformed officers emerged from the shadows, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope. Rebecca stepped forward to greet them, her expression grave yet determined. "I'm Dr. Rebecca James," she said, extending her hand in greeting. "Thank you for coming." The officer in charge, a grizzled veteran with a no-nonsense demeanor, shook her hand firmly. "Detective Morrison," he replied, his voice tinged with skepticism. "We received your call. Care to explain what we're dealing with here?" Rebecca gestured towards the entrance of the cathedral, where Jack and Marcus stood watchful. "Follow me," she said, leading the way into the dimly lit interior. As they entered the cathedral, Detective Morrison and his team surveyed the scene with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The flickering candles cast eerie shadows on the stone walls, illuminating the chamber where the bodies lay in silent repose. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and ancient incense, a testament to the centuries-old secrets hidden within the cathedral's walls. Detective Morrison knelt beside the nearest body, his brow furrowed in concentration. "What do we know so far?" he asked, his voice low. Rebecca took a deep breath, steeling herself against the grisly scene before her. "The bodies appear to have been arranged in a ritualistic manner," she explained, her voice steady despite the unease gnawing at her gut. "There are symbols carved into their flesh, markings that suggest a connection to ancient occult practices." The detective nodded thoughtfully, his gaze scanning the chamber for any clues that could shed light on the identity of the victims. "Do we have any leads?" he asked, turning to Marcus, who stood nearby with a weathered tome clutched in his hands. Marcus cleared his throat, his voice echoing softly in the cavernous space. "Based on my research, the Silent Cathedral has a history steeped in mystery and superstition," he began, flipping through the pages of the ancient text. "Legend has it that it was once a place of refuge for those accused of witchcraft during the Inquisition." Detective Morrison raised an eyebrow, his skepticism evident. "You're saying these bodies could be linked to events that occurred centuries ago?" Marcus nodded solemnly. "It's possible," he replied. "The symbols carved into their flesh, they're consistent with those used in ancient rituals meant to appease malevolent spirits." Rebecca watched as the detective processed this information, his expression unreadable. The weight of their discovery hung heavy in the air, a palpable reminder of the darkness that lurked within the cathedral's ancient stones.
"We'll need to conduct a thorough investigation," Detective Morrison said finally, his voice tinged with resolve. "Gather evidence, interview witnesses, whatever it takes to get to the bottom of this." Rebecca felt a surge of relief wash over her. "Thank you," she said sincerely, her gratitude evident in her voice. "We appreciate your help." With that, the investigation began in earnest. The cathedral grounds became a hive of activity as forensic experts combed through the chamber for clues, while officers canvassed the surrounding area for any sign of the perpetrator. Rebecca and her team assisted where they could, their expertise proving invaluable in unraveling the cathedral's dark and twisted secrets. Days turned into weeks as the investigation unfolded, each discovery bringing them closer to the truth. They interviewed local historians, pored over ancient texts, and consulted with experts in occultism and paranormal phenomena. Slowly but surely, a picture began to emerge. A picture of a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred, and where the sins of the past cast long shadows over the present. As the sun set on the Silent Cathedral, Rebecca couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The darkness that had once seemed distant now hovered on the edge of their awareness, a reminder that some secrets were meant to remain buried. But they had come too far to turn back now. With determination burning bright in her eyes, Rebecca vowed to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The Silent Cathedral held its secrets close, but she and her team were determined to bring them to light. The investigation had only just begun. The investigation into the Silent Cathedral's dark secrets intensified as Dr. Rebecca James and her team delved deeper into its shadowed history. Days turned into weeks, and each discovery brought them closer to unraveling the enigma that gripped the ancient walls. Marcus, the historian, spent countless hours poring over dusty tomes and crumbling manuscripts, deciphering cryptic texts that spoke of forgotten rituals and forbidden knowledge. His findings revealed a chilling truth, that the cathedral had once been a bastion of faith, corrupted by the malevolent forces of its past. Sarah, the tech-savvy investigator, meticulously analyzed the data collected from their paranormal equipment. EMF spikes, EVP recordings, and anomalous thermal readings painted a haunting picture of spectral activity within the cathedral's labyrinthine corridors. The spirits of the past seemed to stir restlessly, their presence growing stronger as the team delved deeper into the heart of the mystery. Meanwhile, Jack's skepticism wavered in the face of mounting evidence. The former detective's sharp instincts and practical approach had served them well, but even he couldn't deny the palpable sense of unease that permeated the air. The whispers that echoed through the cathedral's ancient stones seemed to speak of a darkness that defied rational explanation. Rebecca herself found her thoughts consumed by the revelations unfolding before her. The discovery of the hidden chamber had been only the beginning, a grim reminder of the horrors that had unfolded within the cathedral's sacred walls. But as they continued their investigation, it became clear that there was more at stake than they had initially realized. One evening, as dusk settled over the cathedral grounds, Rebecca gathered her team around a flickering candle in their base camp. The atmosphere was tense, charged with anticipation as they discussed their findings and formulated their next move. "We've uncovered evidence of ritualistic sacrifices," Marcus began, his voice grave. "The symbols carved into the bodies, they're part of an ancient ritual meant to appease malevolent spirits." Sarah nodded in agreement, her eyes wide with a mixture of fascination and fear. "And the paranormal activity we've documented, it's off the charts," she added, gesturing towards the screens displaying graphs and charts of their data. Jack ran a hand through his graying hair, his expression troubled. "But what does it all mean?" he asked, voicing the question that lingered in the back of everyone's minds. Rebecca gazed at her team, her resolve hardening. "It means we're dealing with something far more sinister than we could have imagined," she replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "The Silent Cathedral isn't just haunted. It's a battleground between forces we can't begin to comprehend." They continued their discussion late into the night, mapping out their plan to confront the darkness that had taken root within the cathedral's ancient stones. Marcus shared his research on ancient rituals and occult practices, hoping to glean insights that could help them understand the nature of the entity they faced. Days passed in a blur of research and preparation. The cathedral became their home, its towering spires and weathered facade a constant reminder of the mysteries that awaited them within. Each member of the team grappled with their own fears and uncertainties, their determination tempered by the knowledge that they were venturing into uncharted territory. One evening, as they prepared to conduct a ritual to commune with the spirits that haunted the cathedral, Rebecca found herself alone in the dimly lit nave. The candles cast flickering shadows on the ancient tapestries that adorned the walls, their faded images a testament to the cathedral's storied past. As she stood before the altar, a sense of unease washed over her. The air seemed charged with an electric energy, as though unseen eyes watched her every move from the shadows. She could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful, a force that defied mortal comprehension. A whisper echoed through the silence, its words indistinct yet laden with an urgency that sent a shiver down her spine. Rebecca closed her eyes, reaching out with her senses in an attempt to make sense of the spectral presence that surrounded her. Suddenly, a figure materialized before her, a spectral apparition clad in tattered robes, its eyes burning with an otherworldly light. Rebecca held her ground, her heart pounding in her chest as she confronted the entity that stood before her. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear that threatened to consume her. The apparition's voice echoed in her mind, its words a haunting melody that spoke of pain and longing. It revealed fragments of its tragic story, a tale of betrayal and redemption, of lives lost and souls trapped in limbo. Rebecca listened intently, her mind racing to piece together the puzzle that had eluded them for so long. The entity's presence seemed to bridge the gap between past and present, offering glimpses into the cathedral's dark and troubled history. As dawn broke over the cathedral grounds, Rebecca emerged from her communion with the spirits forever changed. The revelations they had uncovered shed light on the truth behind the Silent Cathedral's haunting reputation, a truth that threatened to shatter their understanding of reality itself. With newfound resolve, Rebecca and her team prepared for the final confrontation, a showdown with the malevolent force that had ensnared the souls of the cathedral's victims. Armed with knowledge and courage, they ventured into the heart of darkness, determined to banish the entity back to the realm from whence it came. The Silent Cathedral stood silent witness to their struggle, its ancient stones bearing witness to the battle between light and shadow. As they performed the ritual to cleanse the cathedral of its malevolent presence, Rebecca felt a sense of peace wash over her, a reassurance that they had succeeded in bringing closure to the souls that had been trapped within its walls. But as they gathered outside the cathedral's weathered facade, Rebecca knew that their journey was far from over. The Silent Cathedral remained a beacon of mystery and intrigue, its secrets buried deep within its ancient stones. As they drove away from the cathedral, the sun setting behind them, Rebecca couldn't help but wonder what other mysteries lay waiting to be uncovered in the darkness. The journey had changed them all, leaving an indelible mark on their souls. A reminder of the thin veil that separated the living from the dead, and the courage it took to confront the demons that lurked within. The Silent Cathedral had revealed its secrets, but the true nature of its darkness remained a mystery, one that would haunt them long after they had left its hallowed grounds.
The sun dipped below the horizon as Dr. Rebecca James and her team returned to the Silent Cathedral one final time. The air was thick with anticipation and the weight of their collective experiences, each step echoing softly against the weathered stone floor. They carried with them the tools of their trade, ancient texts, talismans of protection, and a newfound determination forged from their harrowing journey into the unknown. The atmosphere inside the cathedral was charged with an eerie stillness, broken only by the faint echoes of their footsteps. Candles flickered on makeshift altars, casting dancing shadows on the walls adorned with faded tapestries depicting scenes of triumph and torment. The ancient stones seemed to whisper secrets of centuries past, their voices a haunting chorus that resonated through the cavernous space. Rebecca led the way, her senses alert to the subtle shifts in energy that permeated the cathedral's sacred halls. Her team followed closely behind, their faces etched with determination as they prepared to confront the malevolent force that had ensnared the souls of the cathedral's victims. "We need to perform the ritual here," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of centuries-old knowledge. "This chamber, it's where the darkness is strongest." Rebecca nodded in agreement, her gaze sweeping over the chamber where they had discovered the hidden remains. The air was heavy with the scent of ancient incense and the lingering presence of spectral energy, a potent reminder of the horrors that had unfolded within these walls. With practiced precision, they assembled in a circle, forming a protective barrier around the makeshift altar. Marcus began to chant ancient incantations, his voice resonating with power as he invoked the spirits of the cathedral's tormented past. Rebecca and her team joined in, their voices blending in a haunting melody that echoed through the chamber. As they chanted, the air shimmered with ethereal energy, the boundary between the living and the dead growing thin. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on a life of their own as they swirled around the altar in a ghostly waltz. The atmosphere crackled with tension, a palpable sense of anticipation building with each passing moment. Suddenly, a presence materialized before them, a dark, amorphous shape that seemed to draw energy from the very fabric of their surroundings. The entity's eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light, its form shifting and twisting like smoke in the wind. Rebecca held her ground, her heart pounding in her chest as she faced the malevolent force that had haunted the cathedral's sacred halls. She could feel its gaze bore into her soul, probing her deepest fears and vulnerabilities. But she refused to falter, drawing strength from the unwavering resolve of her team beside her. "We know who you are," Rebecca called out, her voice steady despite the fear that threatened to consume her. "You cannot hide any longer." The entity's response was a chilling whisper that echoed through the chamber, its words laden with malice and ancient fury. It revealed fragments of its tragic story, a tale of betrayal and vengeance, of lives lost and souls condemned to eternal torment. Rebecca listened intently, her mind racing to piece together the puzzle that had eluded them for so long. With each passing moment, the ritual intensified, the barrier between the living and the dead growing stronger. The entity thrashed and writhed in protest, its form flickering like a dying flame. But Rebecca and her team held fast, their voices united in a chorus of defiance that echoed through the cathedral's ancient stones. And then, with a final surge of energy, they unleashed a torrent of light and sound, a cleansing wave of spiritual energy that swept through the chamber, banishing the entity back to the realm from whence it came. The air crackled with residual energy, a testament to their triumph over the forces of darkness that had plagued the Silent Cathedral for centuries. As the echoes of their victory faded, Rebecca and her team gathered outside the cathedral's weathered facade, bathed in the soft glow of the rising sun. They were weary yet victorious, their journey into the heart of darkness forever etched in their memories.
"We did it," Marcus said quietly, his voice tinged with awe. "We brought peace to the souls trapped within these walls." Sarah nodded in agreement, a sense of fulfillment shining in her eyes. "It's finally over," she murmured, her voice tinged with relief. Jack remained silent, his gaze fixed on the cathedral's imposing spires. The weight of their experience hung heavy on his shoulders, a reminder of the fragility of the line between the living and the dead. Rebecca took a deep breath, savoring the moment of quiet triumph. The Silent Cathedral stood silent witness to their struggle, its ancient stones bearing witness to the battle between light and shadow. They had faced their fears and confronted the demons that lurked within, emerging stronger and wiser for the journey. But as they turned away from the cathedral's weathered facade, Rebecca couldn't help but wonder what other mysteries lay waiting to be uncovered in the darkness. The journey had changed them all, leaving an indelible mark on their souls, a reminder of the thin veil that separated the living from the dead, and the courage it took to confront the darkness that lurked within. The Silent Cathedral had revealed its secrets, but the true nature of its darkness remained a mystery, one that would haunt them long after they had left its hallowed grounds. As they drove away from the cathedral, the sun setting behind them, Rebecca knew that their journey was far from over. The Silent Cathedral remained a beacon of mystery and intrigue, its secrets buried deep within its ancient stones. But they had faced their fears and emerged victorious, their bond forged in the crucible of darkness. Together, they would continue to unravel the mysteries that lay hidden in the shadows, guided by the courage and determination that had led them to the heart of the Silent Cathedral. And as they drove into the fading light of dusk, Rebecca couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. A hope that, no matter how dark the journey ahead, they would face it together, united in their quest for truth and justice. The Silent Cathedral had tested their limits and challenged their beliefs, but in the end, it had also shown them the power of perseverance and the strength that lies within each of us to confront the demons that haunt our past. As the cathedral's towering spires faded into the distance, Rebecca glanced at her team, a smile of quiet satisfaction playing on her lips. They had faced their fears and emerged victorious, their bond stronger than ever as they embarked on the next chapter of their journey into the unknown. The Silent Cathedral had revealed its secrets, but their quest for truth had only just begun.